This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
China's gasoline exports fell 20% in October from a year earlier, data showed on Saturday, as domestic road travel surged during the Golden Week holiday. Gasoline shipments of 770,000 metric tons were down from last year's 1.0 million tons and below September's 1.09 million tons, data from the General Administration of Customs showed. Domestic road travel received a boost during an extended Golden Week holiday, which ran from the end of September through the first week of October. Trip numbers were up 71.3% from a year earlier and 4.1% higher than in 2019, according to data released by state media outlet Xinhua. Oil futures nudged higher on Monday, extending gains on expectations of OPEC plus deepening supply cuts to shore up prices, which have fallen for 4 weeks on easing concern of Middle East supply disruption amid the Israel-Hamas conflict. Brent crude futures climbed 57 cents, or 0.7%, to $81.18 a barrel by 0400 GMT, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $76.40 a barrel, up 51 cents or 0.7%. The front-month December contract expires later on Monday, while the more active January futures gained 55 cents, or 0.7%, at $76.59 a barrel. Both contracts settled 4% higher on Friday after 3 OPEC Plus sources told Reuters that the producer group is set to consider whether to make additional oil supply cuts when it meets on November 26.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
U.S. energy firms this week added oil and natural gas rigs for the first time in 3 weeks, as the oil rig count rose by the most since February, energy services firm Baker Hughes said in its closely followed report on Friday. The oil and gas rig count, an early indicator of future output, rose 2 to 618 in the week to November 17. U.S. oil rigs rose by 6 to 500 this week, while gas rigs fell by 4 to 114, their lowest since early September. China resumed adding to crude oil inventories in October as refinery processing slid from a record high and imports rose slightly from September. About 560,000 barrels per day, BPD, was put into stockpiles in October, based on calculations using official data for imports, domestic production and refinery throughput. This was a reversal from September, when refiners dipped into storage tanks, processing 240,000 barrels of oil per day, more than what was available from imports and domestic output. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. China's aluminium imports rose for the 5th straight month in October, customs data showed on Saturday, as buying appetite improved amid solid demand and expectations of reduced supply in the domestic market. The world's biggest consumer and producer of aluminium imported 351,065 metric tons of unwrought aluminium and products including primary metal and unwrought, alloyed aluminium last month, data from the General Administration of Customs showed. October imports climbed 5.8% from 331,716 tons imported in September and were up 78.7% from a year earlier. India and Southeast Asian countries like Thailand and Vietnam are expected to drive the growth in copper consumption towards 2030, as China's supercycle growth slows, industry experts said. Southeast Asia and India together will likely account for 20% of global refined copper demand growth during the 2023 to 2028 period, and could account for 60% of longer-term copper demand growth, Craig Lang, an analyst at CRU, said at the World Copper Conference Asia. Urbanization, green energy transition investments and consumption growth amid rising populations in India and Southeast Asia, at around 2 billion people combined, are the main factors driving copper demand in these countries, Lang said. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector. Ukraine can potentially harvest 18 to 20 million metric tons of winter wheat in 2024 after farmers sowed around 4 million hectares, 9.9 million acres, of the crop, a senior farm ministry official said. The first Deputy Agriculture Minister Taras Vysotsky told national television that the output would provide the population with enough bread as annual domestic consumption does not exceed 6.5 million tons. Farmers sowed 4.46 million hectares of winter wheat for the 2023 harvest and harvested 22.2 million tons of wheat in bunker weight.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.